Good evening. My name's Nancy Hablitzel, and this is Illinois Law, brought to you by the Illinois State Bar Association. Our topic this evening is one that is something that most families, parents, and children are very much aware of. It's called bullying, and it's one of the hottest topics in school law. And I have three expert guests with me tonight who all practice in the area of school law. My first guest is Mary Klimisch. She's a partner at Seyfarth Shaw in Chicago. She's a member of the Executive Council of the Illinois Council of School Attorneys and has been representing public school districts for approximately 20 years. Her practice focuses on public sector and education law, including the breadth of issues focused by Titles I and II of the ADA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, as well as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. My second panelist is John Dively, who is a professor and chair of the Educational Leadership Department of Eastern Illinois University. He teaches courses in educational research, school community relations, and school law. He has been a practicing attorney, a school administrator, and the executive director of a statewide principals organization. And my third panelist is Deb Decker. Deb is a partner at the commercial litigation firm of Tabbitt, DeVito, and Rothstein, LLC in Chicago, where she handles a wide variety of commercial litigation matters at both the trial and appellate levels. She also represents parents and children on issues involving school law and is on the board of directors for the nonprofit association Autism Alert. Deb is a member of the Illinois State Bar Association's Education Law Section Council and serves as its secretary this year. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for coming to talk about the issue of bullying, which I think is one of the ones that people all over the country are really interested in. It's gotten a lot of press, and probably there's a lot of misinformation floating out there, so we're going to see whether we can straighten out a little bit of that. My first question would be, what qualifies as bullying? John, you want to jump in on that one?
The new legislation that was passed has defined bullying as severe or pervasive verbal or physical acts that can be reasonably predicted to cause some things to happen. One would be that a student might reasonably believe that they are going to be harmed either physically or their property would be damaged. Secondly, the second thing is that if you could demonstrate that the student's health, either psychologically or physical health, has been harmed as a result of those severe and pervasive acts, that would be another indicator that bullying has taken place. The third indicator deals with academics, that if a student's academic performance is being substantially impacted as a result of that type of bullying behavior, that would be an indicator, as well as their ability to access services and other activities in the school setting. That's the way the statute has essentially defined bullying.
And this is a new statute.
Mm-hmm.
When do all of the provisions of this statute go into effect? Mary?
Well, there have been provisions in effect in Illinois for a number of years, and of course there's a variety of laws that really prohibit the kind of behavior that has been described in this bullying statute for quite some time. But this particular definition is new for the state of Illinois, and each school district should have or does have a bullying policy in place, which will likely be amended to include this new definition, which will help both educators, administrators, and parents understand the definition of bullying under the school code's provision. But certainly long before this enactment of this statute, we were all aware of certain conduct or behavior that warranted a response from the school district. We've all had school discipline policies in place that prohibit this kind of conduct from occurring on school premises. Most school districts already have anti-harassment policies in place which also prohibit this kind of conduct. And most school districts have electronic use policies which require students to engage in appropriate conduct when using electronic devices, their computers, their PDAs, these kinds of devices for transmitting information electronically. and there are expectations that that be done in a civil manner with civil behavior. So in that regard, this is not necessarily new, it's just an add-on and more about to address a problem that has been in existence for some time.
And if I could just add to what Mary said, because it's exactly right, that there have always been in place policies relating to bullying. But I think everybody has seen in the news, or maybe has been affected by someone that has either been the target of bullying or knows someone who has. And so this statute was put in place to adapt additional protections in schools. And so parents and students are going to see those taking place, and every school should have new policies in place by March of this year. I'm sorry, of 2011.
Of 2011. And what kinds of policies do we think we're looking at? Policies in terms of education, policies in terms of discipline? What will they be?
I think you're looking at a comprehensive approach is the intent of the statute. As Mary's pointed out, you're looking at educational components there, as well as disciplinary consequences that need to be included in the policies, so that students who are targeted because they are different, have the protections that have been afforded to them over the years by good schools. This is not something that hasn't been done in the past in good schools, but I think that the awareness level brought about by some of the high-profile cases, that Deb has indicated, has made our society more aware of some of the pain and anguish that students in our schools endure.
What are some of the differences that we're talking about that are covered specifically in the new statute?
I think that in these policies, and in fact some of the requirements that we've seen in the past, as well as things that will be implemented in the future, include training for teachers, include curriculum components that will address bullying education or education with respect to civility among students. Training with respect to a student's expectation for civil behavior among their peers and what to do in the event that they believe they are being bullied, who should they report to, and understanding among the community of a school community, including all the volunteers, all the teachers, all the parents, as well as the students, of their responsibility to report conduct that they believe is bullying or does not comply with student discipline policies. There would also be then, of course, an understanding of what is the appropriate school's response to reports of bullying, which would include an investigation and then an appropriate responsive measures the school would take with respect to student behavior that was inappropriate. And of course, an awareness that anyone who reports bullying should not be retaliated against. And those would be some of the components that we will see in these policies.
Are there any particular groups of people who are protected from the harassment that you're talking about?
Yes. In fact, the statute outlines exactly, it's not an all-inclusive list, but they've identified some groups. Anyone, it's prohibited now under the new statute for anyone to harass or bully someone based upon race, sex, gender, issues related to age, marital status, military status, also issues related to transgender students. That's also something that has been identified in the statute. And there may be a couple others that I'm
And some of those are the issues that we've seen in the newspapers and on TV, so that pretty well covers the groups that people have been very worried about. Some of the cases, the prom case where one prom was canceled because of some of the issues that went on with that.
Yeah. And even, even more tragic type of cases too that I'm sure that, that have grabbed the headlines, where you have students that have been harassed to the point where they have felt like they had no choice, no other means of dealing with it other than to end their life.
Which is the ultimate tragic result in that case. Yeah. And just a few more of these issues we're going to talk about as soon as we come back from our break. We're going to talk about some of the things that parents can do when a child is being bullied, or whether it's their child or not, the child who is bullied or the child who is bullying. So we're going to address both those issues from the standpoint of both the parents and the child. We'll be back in just a few minutes after our break, and I'll be back with my three panelists to talk a little bit more about bullying on Illinois law.
Bye-bye, Tyler.
Dear, it's time for serious talk.
Oh?
About my daycare. When I started out, it was just to help the neighbors. But lately, it's getting to be a real handful. I need some help.
What can I do?
I need advice on more space, a loan,
What about incorporating?
and insurance.
Wait, I know who we can call.
Times like this require sound advice. Your lawyer can help. A message from the Illinois State Bar Association.
It's your fault!
Over and over.
Leave me alone! Shut up! Out!
Time and again.
No! Drive me nuts! Shut up! You're the dumbest
Generation after generation.
I hate you! I hate you too!
Isn't it time we stop the cycle? Now.
I hate you! I hate you!
Stop adult violence. Teach kids peace. A message from the Illinois State Bar Association.
Welcome back to Illinois Law. My name is Nancy Hablitzel, and I'm your moderator this evening, here with my three guests, Mary Klimisch, John Dively, and Deb Decker, and we were talking about bullying. And I was just going to ask you before the break, do you know of any resources that would be really good for parents that to look at if they want to get more information about this? John, I think you had suggested one.
Right. Southern Poverty Law Center has put out a new DVD called Bullying. It's Bullied, and it talks about the case of a gay student who was bullied in school and what the outcome of that was. And so it's free. You just got to go on the website and send them your address, and they'll send it to you. Mm-hmm.
And that would apply, obviously, in any case of bullying, not just to a gay student, but to any student who's being bullied.
Exactly.
But a good resource.
Yes, it is.
Good. Okay, well, hopefully people will look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask a few more things about what parents can do and what schools can do. So, Deb, assuming you had a child being bullied, what could a parent do?
I think the first thing that a parent can do is talk to their child to understand what the issues are, what's going on with that child at school. Another thing a parent can do is educate himself or herself on what the school policy is and who to go to if there's a problem. I think that the key to bullying is probably number one, communication with your child, and number two, getting involved with the school, because the school is there to help you and your child through this problem.
And Mary, what would you do from the school side?
Well, the first thing I
see this,
would say is ditto what Deb has just shared, in that communication is really key. It's difficult for school officials to respond to circumstances of what might be bullying or inappropriate conduct between students unless they know about it or are aware of what's going on. And the more they learn about it, the more they may be in a position to address the behavior. So it is important for schools to be open to hearing from parents, to hearing from the community, the volunteers in the classroom, to encourage a discussion about bullying behavior, inappropriate behavior, the importance of civility, and for schools to be proactive with respect to developing a mechanism for appropriately investigating and responding, and to assure individuals that retaliation will not be taken for coming forward and sharing information. Clearly, developing components of curriculum with respect to encouraging civility is also important, encouraging proper behavior. That is the kind of behavior we like all our students to exhibit 100% of the time, if possible.
If possible, of course. John, just from the standpoint of the educator, What do you do when you see some bullying going on in your school?
Well, it's really, bullying is a non-negotiable item from an administrative standpoint, in that you know, we all understand that it's very difficult for a student to focus in on their schoolwork when they're afraid of the types of things we've talked about today. So just not only from a moral standpoint, from a pedagogical standpoint, this is something that we've got to address, and we will address very forcefully. And we've got a whole range of options here to utilize in terms of addressing those issues. Everything from talking to, you know, not only the victim but also to the perpetrators. Even though it may not have risen to a level for disciplinary action, we would like to get in at the early stages and try to intervene.
And for a parent then who has a child who comes home and says, this happened today, and it may not be widespread, but it's an incident, is that worth reporting to the school?
I think it is, and because the school may be aware of some other information involving the student as well, and so this may, you know, maybe something, a pattern that's going on with this particular student, and certainly we would like to know. We would like to know about that. Absolutely.
And it could be either the student who's doing the bullying or the student who is being bullied, where there could be a pattern.
Absolutely.
And, you know, what do you do as the ultimate interventions?
Well, you know, we're going to have a conversation with the students, and as administrators, as I said, we take this very seriously. It's going to be made clear that this is not going to be tolerated, and so we can either solve it easily, or there are other options available, many of which the perpetrator is probably not going to enjoy very much.
And for the parent whose child is being bullied, when they want to say, I want to know what is happening to the bully, what happens there? Because sometimes they can't find out.
That's correct. There are clearly statutes in place, both federal and state law statutes, which require school districts to maintain information regarding students other than your own child confidentially. And so there will be instances where parents may only be told by the school district that we've addressed this matter in an appropriate fashion and we're sorry, but we can't tell you anything more than this. So the circumstances, and clearly we want individuals to cooperate in investigations and share information, but with respect to information that involves other children or what kind of measures may be taken regarding other children, that information is confidential information that is not readily able to be shared with parents of the victim in most circumstances.
On the other hand, if a parent knows something that's going on, there's no problem with the parent giving the school information. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. And the parent should do that. Again, partnering with the school to get a right result for your child. And with respect to what happens to the bully, I think, again, the parent's primary focus ought to be on their own child. Was the problem solved? Does their child now feel safe? Do they feel comfortable at school? And are they comfortable with what the school has done? And if the answer to that is yes, ultimately the goal here is not to punish the bully, because I think that really there are likely some issues going on with that child as well that hopefully the school can address. The real purpose here is addressing the problem and making everyone feel safe.
And I thought it was interesting, I had brought this up before, was that it's even made its way into American Girl Place videos, that there's even a bullying video there. And that just shows how very widespread it is in our culture. What kinds of things, where does it start? How old? Where do you see it? Where does it occur? Is it school, playground, internet? Where's most of it happening?
I think the big problem is it's happening everywhere. And certainly with the internet, there has been a lot more bullying. Cyberbullying is what they call it. And it can be very severe. And so these new statutes are in place to really give students a leg up in terms of how to deal with it. I think that one of the big issues is going to be education for the children. How do you deal with bullying when it happens to you? What can you say? What can you do in order to, number one, try to make that first attempt to solve the problem? And if that doesn't work, then there ought to be things in place in school, places where you can go to get the help you need.
Is there ever a time that a parent should ask the police to get involved in bullying? If it's off campus?
Certainly.
I think the big issue with if it happens off campus, there's a limit to what school officials can do. Certainly if school computers are being used, the school officials can intervene. But if something is happening outside of a school-sponsored event without any school involvement, that is when the police need to get involved, because it is a matter that the police can address.
And it's important for parents to understand also that there are collaborative agreements in many communities that allow the local authorities to work collaboratively with school districts to address certain issues as well. So there may be circumstances where that occurs in the event that certain conduct is targeted at the student, not only on school premises, but outside of school premises as well.
And I think one thing that may be frustrating for parents is something happens over the weekend and they come to the school and say to the school administrator, can you help me with this? And in some cases, the administrator can't really take any kind of disciplinary action against the student, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some other measures that we can't put in place. For example, counseling, talking to the perpetrator, et cetera. But there have been, as it was mentioned, especially through electronics that are available to students today, we have what the cyberbullying that's going on, and then there are First Amendment speech rights that are involved that have complicated this issue a bit more. But back to your original question, I think that that bullying, we know, has been around for a long time, and I don't know that it's a lot worse today. It may be just that we're more aware of it, and the opportunities are greater for students to be able to do things that are hurtful to other students.
And the sad thing is that they do things that are hurtful to other students.
That's right.
Which is unfortunate. And as you said before, this is something that is not just making the child feel bad, but interfering with their education.
Right.
And that makes a huge difference to both the families in the schools and the child. This has been a very, very excellent conversation. One last word. Anyone have a last word for a parent whose child is being bullied? What do you do first? Fast.
Well, I think clearly it's communicate with school officials, figure out what the policy is, and talk to a school official.
Okay, and watch now the websites, because the policies will be coming up in March. Look for what your school is doing. See if you can volunteer to help your school in development of their policy or working with it. Thank you to my three guests today. It's been excellent. A hot topic and well handled. Mary Klimisch, John Dively, and Deb Decker, thank you all for coming, and thank you for watching Illinois Law, brought to you by the Illinois State Bar Association. My name is Nancy Hablitzel, and we hope you've enjoyed our program.